This 30,000-year-old handprint isn't just one of the oldest handprints ever discovered. It's the signature of the greatest painter in human history. Don't believe me? That handprint was found in Chauvet cave in southwestern France, alongside these paintings, which were until very recently the oldest cave paintings ever discovered. But I don't call Chauvet the greatest painter to ever live simply because of the age of his art or because of their astounding quality. He's the greatest painter because when he painted these 30,000 years ago, he used techniques that Europeans thought they invented in the Renaissance. Prior to the 14th century, European art looked like this, totally flat with no perspective to give the painting any depth. When the artist wanted to give the appearance that something was behind or in front of something else, they just sort of plopped the image onto the other one, like this. It wasn't until the 14th century that artists realized they could give their paintings depth by making objects smaller, just as they appear in the eye. Yet almost 30,000 years before these painters believed they invented this groundbreaking technique, we can see Chauvet employed it in his panel of the horses. He used stenciling, negative imaging, even animation, as we can see in this blurred horn of the rhinoceros, which under the flickering light of a flame appears in motion. But why should we think this art was drawn by this hand, who I've been calling Chauvet? For one, we can see from his crooked pinky that he broke his 4th or 5th metacarpal at some point in his life, and this unique injury allows us to identify his hand throughout the cave. From its height, we know he must have been about 6 feet tall, which is the right height to paint this panel, but more importantly, it's the only handprint that we can positively identify with art in the cave. The palm print matches this stamp mammoth at the entrance of the cave, which the artist made using a technique called pointillism. Pointillism is the technique of using dots in space to create an image, like here, thought to have been invented by the French in the 1800s, but is obviously far older than that. It also seems very few painters were allowed to paint in the cave, likely because it was seen as a place of worship. This bear skull, which was obviously placed by hand on this rock, looks very much like an altar. We can also see that Chauvet ran his hands over his paintings as he worked. That's likely because in shamanism, communication between the real and the spirit world happens in both directions. So by painting his art, Chauvet was in a way communicating with the spirit world. We can see from the lack of doodles or poor art in the cave that painting was not a frivolous activity. It was reserved for the masters in this place of worship. So when Chauvet was invited to paint this place of worship, it may not have been so different than when Michelangelo was invited to paint the Sistine Chapel. Like today's masters, Chauvet's skill represents a lifetime in the study of the art. And in Chauvet, beneath one of the paintings in the very back of the cave, lies one of the oldest footprints in the world. It's the footprint of an 8-year-old boy, either walking beneath the masterworks of our species or, perhaps, studying to paint them.